It is time to breathe again on the Breath of Fresh Air webcast on YouTube and Facebook. I am your host, Charles, and um, as you can see, I'm by myself for this one. Patrick Brackett, he is spending time with family, so he won't be able to join us today, but I'm gonna do what I can to carry on. So if you catch this webcast and want to chime in with a comment, please do, because I mean I'm by myself, so I can use the company. Uh, there's a lot to get to in sports, and I've just been sitting here, just kind of following it all, and here I am now to respond. Um, also, as you can also tell, I'm doing this on a Wednesday afternoon, so everything's been a little bit hectic for me this week, and I had to try to find the best time to get on here. So this is a special Wednesday afternoon one for you guys. But hopefully by next week we'll be back at our normal Tuesday night at 8 Central, 9 Eastern spot. And Patrick will be back with me as well. So with that being said, let's get to everything that is going on in the sports world. And there's it seems like there's a lot of division on some topics, and we will jump into those. It's going to be one of those webcasts where it's going to be probably a little bit heavy at first, but hopefully as we go on, we can lighten the mood a little bit. So let's start with the fan behavior in the NBA playoffs. We've I've seen and heard all the incidences, and I've heard all the reaction for it as well. Of course, starting last Wednesday, you had the fan in Philadelphia pour popcorn on Russell Westbrook, the Washington Wizards star point guard. Uh, Also in New York City, in the Atlanta Hawks New York Knicks series, you had a fan spit in the direction of Trey Young, spit out. Terrible. And then in Boston, you had somebody throw a bottle at Kyrie Irving. You had a fan run onto the court in Washington, D.C., also during the series between the 76ers and the Wizards. And then in Salt Lake City, you had fans basically throwing racial epithets at the family of Memphis Grizzlies point guard Ja Morant. More on that in a minute. But look, obviously the stuff that is going on with some of these fans, it's wrong, it's disrespectful, and those fans, they should get arrested, they should get prosecuted, and just learn how to deal with stuff. I mean, look, sports, we are all passionate about sports, or a lot of us are passionate about sports, but there's no need to take it to that level to where you're pouring popcorn on a player, where you're throwing bottles and spitting at somebody. I mean, that it's despicable. Now, I when it comes to these situations, before I get on the fans, because I'm a fan myself, of course, but uh, when I look at the situation involving the players, I try to put myself in their shoes as much as I probably can't right now because I don't have that status. But I try to put myself in their shoes to ask myself, what would I do if I was in that situation, if I got stuff thrown at me? Well, then I sit here and I look at the items that were used. If someone threw popcorn at me, again, that's disrespectful, but I would probably look at them crazy as if to say, really, you're going to throw popcorn at me? Popcorn is not really going to hurt anybody on the surface, but still doesn't take away from what the fan did. Still disrespectful. But I probably won't myself. I probably wouldn't react that much to popcorn. Now, if you're throwing sodas or a bottle at me or pouring beer on me, you might get the hands. You might get me trying to run up there and kick your tail. That might happen. And if you spit on me, you're definitely getting the hands. It's on before I even gather that spit is coming at me. That is the most despicable, demeaning thing you can do to anybody is spit at somebody. So if that happened, yeah, you're definitely getting the hands. We're definitely going to throw down and fight. Uh, but on the surface of what's going on in the NBA arenas, those actions are disrespectful. Players can't go and mess with fans, and fans, what's going on, Stan? Good to see you. Yes, the hands. They would get the hands exactly. If I caught that, I mean, if somebody, especially if someone spit at me, that's no, that's a no no, and I would expect anybody to have that same reaction. There's no way that should be tolerated. But I wanted to get on the fans as a whole because I think what happens when these incidents happen is fans get painted into this wide brush. And it's not just fans it happens to. It happens to all walks of life, whether we're talking about media, which we'll get on in a minute. Uh, it could be, workers at a shop or workers in the military or whatever, the team, whatever it may be. Those fans weren't the ones that messed up per se. The vast majority, the 99.9% of the fans, they're not the ones who messed up. It is that idiot in Boston who threw the bottle at Kyrie Irving. He messed up. It's the idiot that decided to spit at Trey Young. That moron messed up. The knucklehead who wanted to run onto the court in Washington, D.C., get tackled by security. He messed up. And the person who poured popcorn on Russell Westbrook, that idiot messed up. It's those four. I say that to just point out these are instances that happen probably more often than not, but it should not put all fans in a bad light. You've seen the environments. If you're watching the playoffs on TV, or if you had the privilege to go to some of these games, you've seen the environments in those arenas. The Madison Square Garden in New York City has been on fire, and they're going to have a game tonight, hoping to help their New York Knicks stave off elimination. But Madison Square Garden's been on fire. The arena in Phoenix has been on fire for their series with the LA Lakers. Here in Dallas, when the LA Clippers came down here for games 3 and 4, although the Dallas Mavericks didn't help produce a win, but that arena, especially in game 3, they were on fire. These arenas have been great environments, and it is shown just, I guess, how much the fans, that interaction you see on television, and if you're there in the arena, how much that's been missed. Because I mean, to hear the roar of the crowd, it's just so much better than hearing some pumped in crowd noise, seeing the passion on their faces, seeing everybody just go up in jubilation when their favorite team or player does something on the court. It is awesome to see and hear after what we've been through for the last 15 or so months with this COVID-19 pandemic. And about that COVID-19 pandemic, because people have been pent up in their homes, in their apartments, condos, wherever they're staying, now they're getting out a little bit. People are getting vaccinated, people are getting out more. The restrictions are loosening up a little bit. We just went through Memorial Day weekend where it looked like travel was getting back to normal. There's just a lot of stuff that's going on. And when the people came out to the arenas, I mean, you have some, they just don't know how to act. Those are the people that need to get punished if they're going to do something crazy. But I think there has been just so much pent up aggression in people because they haven't been able to leave their homes, because even if they are able to leave their homes, there's nobody else really out, so there's not that social interaction they might be used to. I just think there is a lot of mental health stuff that goes into this, and if you're used to being out and then you get that taken away from you, you're not, some people might not know how to react to that. This isn't me excusing those actions of those players that did those bad deeds in the arenas, but I'm just looking at it from a standpoint of those there's people that, I mean, they're out and they don't know how to handle themselves. They don't know what to do with themselves. And I think those are some of those things that need to be talked about more, should be dealt with a little bit more, because look, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I need to go talk to a therapist. I need to go see somebody because, I mean, I don't know how to deal with this stuff with COVID. This has been a difficult year for all of us. I mean, all of us. And I think now we're starting to get a little bit back to normal. And with us getting back to normal, there's going to be some good and some bad with it. You just hope that the good outweighs the bad. And those people who are going to be disrespectful to those players, hey, get them out, prosecute them, and all that. Now, uh, in particular with the Kyrie Irving thing, look, I just wanted to say this real quick and then we can move on. With the Kyrie Irving thing, I mean, he went and I guess he stepped on the logo at midcourt in game four when the Brooklyn Nets beat the Boston Celtics in game four. And I think that was, I mean, it's pretty weak on Kyrie Irving's part, but even still, and Kyrie Irving to me is kind of a petulant child anyway, but even then, he doesn't deserve to get anything thrown at him. And for the people who are criticizing him, Kevin Garnett, Glenn Big Baby Davis, for the people criticizing him for stepping on the logo. I mean, come on. I get it from a competitive standpoint, but that's not nearly as egregious as somebody throwing a bottle at him. So let's just get that straight. Hopefully we can go on without any more of the fan incidents. And one more thing on a good note, I had heard the Utah Jazz, their organization, is putting the family of Grizzlies guard Ja Morant on courtside seats. So I think that's a good gesture, a nice gesture by the Utah Jazz, just trying to, I guess, give them something, kind of help them move on from that experience they had in their home arena. So I think that's a good gesture just to let them know, hey, those fans, that doesn't represent what they're about. That this is supposed to be a good environment, hostile environment, but hostile environment to a degree, not to where there's going to be a whole bunch of racial epithets thrown at them. So I felt like that was a good gesture by the Utah Jazz. Now, let's get to the situation involving Naomi Osaka. So I'm sure all y'all have heard she withdrew from the French Open because of anxiety, and basically she said she didn't want to deal with the media obligations there. The French Open people, they gave her a fine. They fined her, I think it was a $15,000 fine. And with that fine, of course, it turned into a, if you don't do your media obligations, then you can get banned. I think that's a little harsh, but it, it is the rules that they had in place. Now, first and foremost, if Naomi Osaka is dealing with mental health situations, if it's a part where she didn't want to deal with the media because she struggles on the clay surface. So, for those of y'all who aren't familiar with tennis, you have your four majors: the French Open, Wimbledon, the US Open, and the Australian Open. The Australian Open and the US Open are both played on hard courts. The Wimbledon is played on a grass surface, and the French Open is played on a clay surface. I guess Naomi Osaka has not played well on the clay surface, and maybe she didn't want to deal with that. I don't know, but apparently this came from her sister on a deleted message, or since deleted message, talking about those struggles on clay. And she and Naomi didn't really want to deal with those questions. And then she also talked about having anxiety from going in front of a pool of people. Now, if you're also to believe that statement that she had wrote as to why she withdrew, she says it came basically, I mean, she's been experiencing a lot of that anxiety with dealing with the media since the 2018 US Open. Now, if you remember the 2018 US Open, that was when she had the victory over Serena Williams, but Serena Williams was in some controversy because I guess she was getting coached from her coach. She was getting pointers from her coach from the stands, which I guess is not allowed. And then she got into it with the line judge there, saying, "You're just doing this to me because you're a woman," and it just really blew up from there. And it took away, fairly or unfairly, from Osaka's victory there in the U.S. Open. And she said ever since then, it's just been something that she's been dealing with, trying to do the best she can. And right now it's come to a head again. So, first and foremost, we want her to make sure, or I would hope everybody wants her to just get right, to deal with the issues she is having and just make sure she is physically right. Forget the tennis player for a second. This is about Naomi Osaka, the human being, and she needs to do whatever she can to get herself back on a good path, and then worry about tennis later. That's the most important thing. And if it's some mental health issues she's dealing with, then let her deal with those, and she should be able to take as much time as she needs to deal with that. But um, being selfish as a fan, I would definitely like to see her back on the court sooner than later, but not at the risk of compromising her mental health. So that's first and foremost. Now, as far as media obligations, hey, all the leagues have it. NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, National Hockey League. Every league has media obligations for their players to meet. So it is part of the deal for you to be able to talk to the media. It gives that access, and it's kind of that line of communication between the players and the fans. Uh, Also, another thing to keep in mind: tennis, of course, is an individual sport. So if you mess up, if something happens there, that is totally on you. It is one thing if you're in the NFL or in the NBA or any of these team sports, something comes up on you, and you can have a bad game depending on the position. You can have a bad game and you can kind of fly under the radar there. But if you're playing one of these individual sports like tennis or golf, oh, there's nobody else to have anything pointed at but you. And that can take its toll as well. It's just a different dynamic. But as far as the media obligations go, I know this. There's a lot of people who have been out there talking about their different reasons for why this is happening and how they feel, whether they're on the side of Naomi Osaka uh, taking a break away from tennis, or they're on the side of calling Naomi Osaka a, a petulant child, a brat, or whatever it is that these people who are on that camp want to call her. Hopefully, that's the worst of it, but I doubt it. Uh, be as it may, though, it, with the media obligations, I do know this. For the people who say no, I don't want her talking to the media. I don't think it's necessary for these players to talk to the media. Well, you say it's not necessary, but I guarantee when you look at these television shows, these radio shows, any social media forum, when you look at those, what are they talking about? They are talking about what that player said after the game, after a match. They are using those sound bites to help drive their content. So I don't want to hear, oh, I'm not interested in what they're hearing. When they are saying something, you're there listening to it, and you're probably going to use that sound bite, which is good for content and ultimately good for business. So stop it with the whole, ah, man, I ain't interested in what they're trying to say. Now all of a sudden you're not interested in it. But these are the same people, and fans alike as well, not just media, but fans alike as well. Do the majority or some of the fans, I'll say. But these are the same people who were saying, "Hey, I don't really want you to speak up on these social issues." But they were also the same people who said, "Oh, well, they don't speak up enough on social issues. All they care about is their millions and millions of dollars." So now you're trying to give that leeway. You're trying to give that line of communication to them, and now all of a sudden you don't want to hear it. Give me a break. Miss me with that. You're going to use anything they say for content. I mean, I'll just talk about whichever player. Name a player from last night, as a matter of fact, in the playoff games. The Lakers Suns game, Damian Lillard, the 55 point performance he had against the Denver Nuggets last night. You're going to use that soundbite, he says, because this man just had a ridiculous performance, but it was in a losing effort. You mean to tell me you're not trying to hear what he has to say after having that performance and seeing his team lose? Give me a break. Of course you are. And don't try to act like you're not interested in what they're saying, because you are. Because I know if you had a 55-point performance and it was in a losing effort, you're probably going to have a lot to say. Or you might just say the say the politically correct thing. Hey man, we just didn't do enough as a team. I got to do more, whatever it may be. But you're trying to hear what he has to say off of that performance. You're trying to hear what LeBron James has to say after he and the LA Lakers got blown out by the Phoenix Suns by 30. So miss me with we don't really care what the players say there. Stop that. You know that ain't true. And you know that ain't good for business, among other things, because money is the thing that drives it. But about Naomi Osaka, though, it's about her getting the help and doing what she needs to do to get herself right. And hopefully there can be a little bit of a compromise. I would like to know what Naomi is looking for. If it's just her not trying to talk to him as much, is she not trying to talk to him at all? What exactly is she looking for? I do think it is a conversation to be had. And if there has to be a little bit of a lessening of media obligations, I can see it that way. If the leagues want their players to be accessible to the media, which in effect is communication to the fans as well, I can understand it both ways. And I think that's just one of those things. This is one of those situations where uh, both things can be true. Excuse me, sorry, had a burp, couldn't get it out. But I think this is one of those situations where both things can be true. You can have a player who doesn't want to talk to media obligations, and then if she gets fined, then how much is she trying to stay in there to get fined, or how much is she willing to give up if she does keep getting fined? The leagues, they have their rules and they want their players to be accessible. Some players handle it better than others. There's some players who love the microphones in their face. Others, they don't deal with it as well. But that's where you have your subject matter experts, your people, your public relations people who kind of help groom you into not necessarily being the best at it, but at least doing what they can to help you deal with the questions that may come. So, I mean, I think it's definitely one of those things where we could talk about it. And uh, whichever whatever way this goes, that I mean, I think I'll be cool with it. Me being a media member, I mean, I understand there are a lot of media that does ask some dumb questions, but that shouldn't put the media in a broad spotlight, because everybody wants to blame the media for this, blame the media for that. Yes, there are people who have some bad questions, stupid questions. I get it. I understand. But that shouldn't speak for everybody who is in the media. There are some good media people out there. There are people who are about the foundations of journalism, what is right, which is just being accurate, which is being truthful, which is being fair with it. That's the foundation of it. I know media has kind of gone into a situation where it is about being first on stuff, and accuracy doesn't matter. That is horrible. That is sad. You've heard me say this on the webcast a lot, but I mean, I think uh, hopefully with this conversation with Naomi Osaka taking a stand, there can be actually some constructive, difficult conversations that needs to be had, and mental health does need to be at the forefront. So if this is her taking a stand against that to make sure her mental health and anxiety is dealt with, I'm all for it. And that's the first priority, to make sure the woman is right. Not worried about the tennis player at this point. Let's make sure the woman is right first. Now, let's get to the action on the NBA court. Like I mentioned earlier, you have the Phoenix Suns. They have the LA Lakers on the brink of elimination now after taking the lead 3 games to 2. Game 6, I think, is Thursday night, and it could be the end of the Lakers for the season. It's been uneven for them. Anthony Davis went out with a groin injury in Game 4, and last night the Lakers just looked like a team that really, like, they mailed it in. And you had LeBron James, he walked off the court and was gone, I mean, minutes before the game ended. It just looks weak. I don't think this is the first time we've seen LeBron do this. He's an awesome player, not taking that away from him. But I mean, LeBron, he has shown to be a little bit of a sore loser at times. And that's how I kind of looked at that situation as well. So look, we'll see how he comes back. He didn't look that good in the game. And none of the Lakers did. But this is the guy who said at the end of Game 4, "Hey, these shoulders can handle a lot of stuff." And I'm paraphrasing there, but basically he said he was ready to take on the load. Well, if yesterday was any indication, he's not ready to take on that load. And I think it's just kind of bearing out. Hey, the Lakers, they have to be healthy there. They were able to stay healthy last year. And I mean, you could say that about a lot of teams. We'll get to them in a minute, but the Lakers, they look like they're in trouble. Now their season is on the line, their championships on the line. I expect them to come out with a better effort tomorrow. But hey, if they go home, I won't be surprised. The Western Conference is tough. So it'll be interesting to see how the Lakers end up there. All the Western Conference series after the first 4 games, with the exception of the Utah Jazz and Memphis Grizzlies series, were all tied at 2. And the Utah Memphis series has been ultra competitive too. But now let's talk about that Portland Denver series. I pointed out what Damian Lillard did with for Portland yesterday in a losing effort. Now they're down 3 games to 2. Game 6 back in Portland, coming up in the next couple of days. So it is it. Uh, I don't know what else you have to do if you're David Lillard. You score 55, your team's supposed to win that game. So that might be a death blow for them, which that would be one of my picks that were wrong, because I picked Portland to win that series. So we'll see how Portland reacts coming home for Game 6. And then tonight you have Dallas and LA, the Clippers, going back in Los Angeles for Game 5 there. No home team has won yet in that series. Dallas, they're trying to look out for Luka Doncic. We'll see what happens with him. He's sore. He has a cervical strain, I think, which is basically that area right here, the traps area on his left side, and it's affected him. And I don't know what this has. I mean, I expect him to play, but to what capacity he's going to be, that remains to be seen. Having the extra day off between games on Sunday and the game tonight on Wednesday, that could help to have a little bit more rest to get things right. And hopefully for the fans everywhere, you have a peak Luka Doncic coming out for Game 5. Going over to the Eastern Conference, I mean, injuries, it just seems to be what is really tilting this thing. You look at the Philly 76ers, Joel Embiid, the center, he went out with a knee bruise, and it came out he has a slight tear in his meniscus. So, or a small tear in his meniscus. So that's something that's going to be monitored, and you hope he can get back. But if there's a small tear in there, I don't know how effective he's going to be. I don't know if he's going to be peak Joel Embiid. And I mean, looking at Philly, they were looking really impressive against the Washington Wizards. But that's how quickly a series or the personality of the playoffs can change when you're looking at injuries like that. And it's just to key personnel. That's what's really sad about it. You're seeing these injuries happen to key personnel that directly have an effect on the outcome of the team and where they can go. So hopefully it can be managed and we do see Joel Embiid come back because the Philly 76ers, they're a legit title contender. Absolutely they are. Number one seed in the East. And I mean, they've been looking good. It looks like they are ready to make that run. But now we'll see what happens with the status of Joel Embiid going forward. They have game 5 tonight. They'll try to put the Wizards away, and we'll see where that game goes. We know Brooklyn put away Boston last night in 5 games, and now they're getting ready to face the Milwaukee Bucks. Huge series there. Game one will be Saturday night in Brooklyn. I'm really excited to see this because I have been saying, y'all heard me on the webcast when I had Patrick and Stan on here with me. I feel like people are sleeping on Milwaukee. They went ahead, they swept the Miami Heat, which was the team, of course, that put them out last year in the bubble. And it is, yeah, Milwaukee did everything right pretty much in that series to get the revenge and get Miami out of there. After game one, which was won in overtime by the Bucks, it was a domination. I mean, I think Milwaukee won by a combined 80 points, games 2, 3, and 4. So they look dominant. Brooklyn, I mean, people were going to say they look dominant, but I mean, Boston was a shell of themselves, and they hadn't been all that good anyway. Basically, they did what they were expected to do. And I mean, on the surface, when you look at the seeds, Milwaukee did what they were expected to do. But I just think Miami was a better team than Boston this year. And Boston, especially when Jaylen Brown went out, they weren't going to present much of a threat to Brooklyn. Although I feel like Brooklyn should have swept them. But when you have a great player in Jason Tatum who can hit 50 points, anything is possible. So excuse me, we'll see what Brooklyn does later on when it comes to this series. But I think they're going to get a lot more of a test. And this is where we're going to find out about Brooklyn, what they're made of. Because everybody's so quick to say, oh, they're going to win. They have 3 of the best offensive players in the league. They have so much firepower. I don't know if they really faced adversity yet. I mean, one, they really hadn't played that much together. So I think this is where it's going to start to show up to see what they do, how they're going to manage these situations, and if they are so jovial like they say they are, because I personally don't see it. Uh, and then in the other series with the Atlanta Hawks and New York Knicks, Atlanta can put the Knicks away tonight. It's going to be tough up there in Madison Square Garden. It does look like the Hawks are the better team, though, because it looks like they have more playmakers. And, Trey Young has been awesome in this series, uh, not only scoring, but distributing the ball to those shooters, to Bogdanovich and John Collins and Hunter. I mean, they have a lot of people. Clint Capella has been great inside for them as well. So I think New York, they maybe they get some home cooking. Julius Randle, he has to show up. Mr. Most Improved Player of the Year, he has to show up. If he doesn't, the Knicks will go home. Derrick Rose has been their best player. And while Derrick Rose is still a very good player, this isn't the MVP Derrick Rose we saw in 2011. She's just not that guy who's going to carry you to some wins. He's just not that guy anymore. So, I mean, as good as he's been, I don't think that's the best sign that he's been your best player in the series. They're going to need more, way more from Julius Randle. RJ Barrett has to show up more consistently. Yeah, they just need more from those other guys. And we know the Knicks played hard. This has been a good story. But even if they win tonight, I do see this coming to an end after this round. So that's what you have on the court. And now going back off the court, we just got a story yesterday saying, or yesterday to this morning, as a matter of fact, saying the Boston Celtics are making changes. So of course they got taken out by the Brooklyn Nets on Tuesday night. And apparently Danny Ainge is stepping down as the president, and Brad Stevens, who was the head coach, is moving into that role. Now the head coaching is vacant. As far as the job in Boston goes, I don't think it's a bad job. I mean, look, it's not a bad job, period. I mean, you have one of the exclusive jobs as an NBA head coach open there. But looking at that situation, hey, you have a nice nucleus to build around there. You have Jason Tatum. You have Jalen Brown. Marcus Smart is a key cog in that stable. And now you have to figure out what you're going to do around those guys. That's the test that awaits Brad Stevens now. As far as Danny Ainge and what he's done, I felt like he did a pretty good job with it. Maybe he didn't make that huge splash move. I mean, I think he didn't it's not wasn't a lack of trying. I mean, he brought Kyrie Irving to the team there, but Kyrie Irving poisoned the environment. So I mean, they moved on from him, and he went down to Brooklyn. But I mean, Boston was in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2017 and 2018 and in 2020. So I think he was able to put the team together to where they could get to a certain point. Now it's trying to take those final steps. That's what it's about. This was an uneven season for them. They underachieved. Things just weren't, they just never came together for them. So maybe now with things coming back to normal, they can regroup and they can get back to that status. They said they have a good nucleus there. It's just going to be what they build and what they put around those guys to see where they go from there. And then let's see what else is on the list here. Okay, so a couple more things. Let's go to the NFL here. Now, there's nothing that has happened on the trade front. People were looking for Julio Jones to get moved because June 1st has passed. Julio Jones is still an Atlanta Falcon right now. Aaron Rodgers and that stalemate with the Green Bay Packers, there's nothing there right now in terms of what is going to happen with the teams. Are they going to move? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Is he going to come back? Is he going to get traded? Is he going to retire? Nothing has happened there. So we'll just keep an eye on that as they come. But what I wanted to talk about today was Bill Cowher. So he has an autobiography coming out called Heart and Steel. And I guess in a conversation with the Athletic, he was asked about back in, I guess, between the 2001 and the 2004 seasons. Now, two of those seasons, the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, the team he was coaching for a while, they went to the AFC Championship game. Both times they lost to the New England Patriots there. Both times in Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. Now, of course, this was around the time where I guess Spygate was going on, and the question was asked: does he hold any ill will toward Patriots coach Bill Belichick and the Patriots for the Spygate stuff? And Bill Cowher said, no, he doesn't. He's not going to fault them for trying to get an edge, and he basically said it's cheating if you get caught, only if you get caught. Now, I, personally, I think he is right because you, as a coach, you have to make sure you're doing the stuff you have to do to make sure all those T's are crossed, all those I's are dotted. You know, if you're going against the Patriots, they are going to press that line, probably sometimes go over it in terms of trying to get an advantage. And they will use anything and everything to gain that advantage. Look at what they did, or look at the 2017 season when the Patriots played the Philadelphia Eagles. The head coach, Doug Peterson, he took no chances during that Super Bowl. He was holding closed door practices. He was changing up all kinds of stuff there. He took no chances. And oh, go figure, the Eagles won. Go figure. And the next year, the Patriots got back to the Super Bowl. You know what they did when they were taking on the Rams and Jared Goff, who had a pretty good year as a quarterback for the LA Rams that year? They used ESPN's Detail series, which on the football side, that is done by Peyton Manning. We all know the history Peyton Manning has with the Patriots, those great battles they have had at the beginning of it when he was with the Indianapolis Colts and then later with the Denver Broncos. They went and they used that Detail series to get tools about how to defend Jared Goff. So this is a team that will use anything and everything to do research, to get their scouting reports. And Bill Cowher just said, hey, we didn't do our job. And ultimately, that's what you have to point to because you can only control what you can control. And if you know who you're going against, then you better know to make sure you have things tucked away to where they're not able to steal signs or steal certain play calls, play signals, or whatever the case. You have to make sure your stuff is on point. And I commend Bill Cowher for saying, hey, I didn't do what I need to do, because that's what it is ultimately about. What did you do? You have to be able to take responsibility for that. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to accept responsibility. But I'm glad to see Bill Cowher did that. Finally, let's go to Major League Baseball, and let's take a look at the New York Yankees, because New York Yankees right now, they're scuffling a little bit. The Tampa Bay Rays are the first place team in the AL East, followed by the Boston Red Sox, which is a surprise to many, including myself. And the thing with the Yankees that's crazy is they just can't seem to put it together. Now, we looked at their lineup and we said, well, we know they have a lot of pop in the lineup, but it's going to be feast or famine. It's going to be a home run or strikeout when it comes to the Yankees. And then they could hit a lot of home runs. They could put up 6, 7 runs per game if they weren't putting up 10 runs a game, but their pitching was terrible. So, excuse me. So, you're not going to beat anybody if you have great hitting, but you have bad pitching, or at least you're not going to go anywhere far in the playoffs. Well, now in this season, or at least in the first couple of months, their pitching has actually been pretty good, but now they can't hit. And they're hitting that low where they're just striking out a lot. They can't get any runs on the board. And I mean, the other day they had, I think, one run. Yeah, they had one run against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay just has their number, by the way. Yes, I know the Yankees beat them last night, but Tampa Bay just right now kind of has the Yankees number overall. They knocked them out of the playoffs last year, and like the Yankees, it's just a bad matchup for them right now. The Rays pitching just they stifle them. They know how to pitch to the Yankees hitters. Stay away, away, away. Don't get them. Don't throw them pitchers in the wheelhouse down the middle where they can turn on them and mash them out of that court, that juice ballpark known as Yankee Stadium. And it's just a bad matchup for them because they're chasing everything. They're trying to uh, just pull everything. They're trying to hit everything out of the park instead of just trying to put the ball in play. And when you do that, this is what you can get. You can get an explosion for 10 runs, or you can get shut out or just get one run. Right now, the Yankees have to do something with their lineup. I don't know what the GM, Brian Cashman, is going to do, but I just think it's funny how either one or the other is off or on, just depending on what happens. Still a long way to go in the season. We have 4 months left in the campaign, so we'll see if the Yankees can put it together. Yeah, but as it is, I mean, I think they're only 5 or 6 games out of first place. Fact check me on that. But I think they're around that number. So they can get hot, they can get on a winning streak, and things can turn around. But we gotta remember, this is the Yankees we're talking about, and this was a fan base that was throwing trash on the court. Also, conveniently during a series against the Rays, where they were getting swept, and this was in April. So, if they're panicking in April, I'm sure they are beyond panicking now. And I just think it's comical when you consider the length the Major League Baseball season is. Well, y'all, whew, that was a lot to run through. Oh, one more thing before I go. So there is a report that says Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski is going to retire after the end of next season. So if this is going to happen, hey, we know how great Coach K is. Great career. I think he has five. Yes. Five national titles he has won with Dukes. Let me see. I'm trying to think. So they won in 91, 92, 2001, 2010, and 2015 was when Duke won their national titles with Mike Krzyzewski there. And look, I mean, awesome career, legend in the game, and look, hats off to him. I think I would like to see what all is going to come out of why he's retiring, but I do think this was a taxing year for him. You remember he had kind of came into a little bit of controversy with the way he was handling the team, some of the things he was doing in terms of getting after students for chants they were making against other teams. Just and not bad chants, just chants, just getting on the opposing team. So, I mean, I think a lot of stuff has been weighing on him, and he's choosing this time to walk away. And hey, hats off to him for a great career. Well, that is what I'm breathing on for this webcast. Y'all make sure to check out the Breath of Fresh Air YouTube channel and smash that subscribe button and keep the likes coming on the Breath of Fresh Air Facebook page. I should be back with a shorty come Friday, and hopefully that will put us back on schedule next week. And I will have Patrick back with me as well for the webcast at the normal time of Tuesday night. So, everybody, take care. Thanks for the people who have tuned in. Please leave your comments. Let me know how it is, how we're doing. And I'll be glad to get back to you guys with reactions. So everybody have a good rest of the week, and we will talk soon. Thanks for tuning in.